The energy transition requires both the scaling up of renewables and the orderly retirement of fossil fuel plants. ACEN, the listed renewable energy platform of the Ayala Group over in the Philippines, is a leader in the renewable revolution across Asia Pacific and is committed to transition its generation portfolio to 100% renewable energy by 2025 and to become a net zero greenhouse gas emissions company by 2050. I sat down at the COP28 talks here in Dubai to talk to the president and CEO of ACEN, Eric Francia. So this is your first ever COP. So why did you decide the time is now, and why in particular this COP?
Well, Laura, as you know, I lead an energy company called ACEN, and ACEN is in the midst of transforming and from a fossil fuel focused portfolio, and we're transforming this company to be more renewables focused. And last year, around the same time as COP last year, we actually completed a first in the world called the Energy Transition Mechanism, which entails the early divestment and the early retirement of coal plants, right? So it is a first in the world. We're proud to have achieved that, and that's why we're here now to talk about what we did about a year ago.
Very much looking forward to hearing much more about your company. Let's go head on over to our studio. Eric, great to be sitting down with you here at COP28. Let's start off with your company and a little bit more about exactly what ACEN does. As I understand, you're very much into the notion of retiring coal plants, and you're very much looking in the direction of renewables now. So tell us a little bit more.
Yes, well, thank you, Laura. ACEN is the listed energy platform of the Ayala Group, which is headquartered in the Philippines. Ayala is a longest-standing company in the Philippines. We're celebrating 190th year next year. But ACEN is one of the younger major listed business units of Ayala. I started the business in 2011, so we're relatively young, literally from 0 megawatts, started from scratch and started in the Philippines, and then over time we grew across the region. As you mentioned, ACEN, while we wanted to be always at the forefront of sustainability and focus on renewables, when we started 12 years ago, we quickly realized that renewables was not going to make the cut, that we had to go into coal-fired power plants to power the needs of reliable and affordable energy in the Philippines, which was really on a significant growth path about a decade ago. But then we made the shift along the way from fossil fuel to renewables. That transformation happened just about 5-6 years ago. And I guess that's why we're here to tell you about our amazing transformational journey from what originated to be a fossil fuel focused platform to now on our way to become a 100% renewable platform.
Speaking of coal and these coal plants, what is the general regulation around retiring these coal plants in order to reach 1.5? What's the main sort of standard out there?
Well, actually, there is no policy per se globally, or it depends per market. But just big picture, coal accounts for about a third of global energy emissions, so it's quite significant. In the global north, if you will, the average age of coal plants is more than 40 years old. So there is a natural time for retirement that it's imminent, right? Because coal plants typically last for 40 to 50 years. In the case of Southeast Asia, we have a very young fleet. We have the fourth largest installation in the world in terms of coal-fired power plants. And we have among the youngest average age of under 15 years. And the economies in Southeast Asia, particularly Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, are growing significantly. Demand growth is in the 5 to 6% in the case of Philippines. Indonesia is similar, and Vietnam is even the 8 to 9% demand growth. So there is a challenge to retire the coal plants in Southeast Asia earlier than their life. And according to the International Energy Agency, globally, we need to reduce coal emissions by 55% between 2022 and 2030, and close to zero. Coal emissions should get to close to zero by 2040 if we are to attain a limit 1.5 degrees global warming. So it is very challenging for markets like Southeast Asia to effect an early coal retirement, but it's not an excuse for us to do nothing. And I think we've done some pretty amazing things last year in terms of coal retirement using the energy transition mechanism that was being promoted by the Asian Development Bank in our part of the world. But this year, we also recently made some announcements just this week on a relatively new mechanism involving high integrity carbon credits on early coal retirement and replacement with clean, reliable, and affordable energy. So it's an exciting pioneering work that we're doing with the Monetary Authority of Singapore and Rockefeller-backed Coal to Clean Credit Initiative. We're going to do the world's first pilot project on transition credits.
So carbon credits, obviously, there's sometimes a bit of controversy around that, but what does this mean for the industry? It's a good start, isn't it? Especially when it comes to coal and making it more circular into renewables.
Yes, definitely carbon credits is seen as a huge opportunity to unlock the potential of accelerating coal retirement. If I can just talk a little bit about the groundbreaking transaction that we did last year. About a year ago, ACEN actually completed a world's first energy transition mechanism, which entails the divestment and commitment to the early retirement of a coal plant. So the energy transition mechanism is an approach pushed by the Asian Development Bank, which entails the use of low-cost and purpose-driven funding. So there is a pool of capital out there that could be used to purchase coal plants with the intention of shutting them down earlier than their useful operating life. So in our particular case, we did the first market-based ETM in the Philippines on our 246 megawatt coal plant. We completed the transaction last year in November of 2022. And it entailed the divestment, a successful divestment of the coal plant, but we have the ability to reacquire it to make sure that it gets shut down, retired, and transitioned to cleaner technology after 25 years of operations or by the year 2040. So this will really help reduce emissions worth at least 15 to 25 years. That's equivalent of almost of up to 50 million tons of reduced carbon emission because of the shortened life of the plant and with a commitment to retire it by 2040. Having said that, we allowed ourselves the option to increase that ambition and to possibly further accelerate the retirement of the coal plant from 2040 to 2030, precisely because we thought that if the right mechanism came to fore, then at least we can respond to the IEA call for the 55% reduction by 2030 of coal plants. And we believe that such mechanism is at hand with the advent of this push for transition credits, which is a high integrity carbon credits. And having a Monetary Authority of Singapore and 3CI, the Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, who is working with Verra, which is one of the carbon registry and standard setters globally, lends itself to a lot of credibility and high integrity carbon credits.
Do you think the best way forward is more accountability or more incentives? Which way should it be driven?
I think it's both, and I think that's what the carbon frameworks do. In the case of Europe, there is the cap and trade system or the emissions trading scheme, and in the case of Singapore, they are the first market in Southeast Asia to have a carbon tax, which is has a progressive pricing. So, and the pricing is robust. The good thing about having a market is that there is a price tagged to carbon emission. In the case of Europe, carbon price has hovered between 80 to 100 euros over the last year or so. In the case of Singapore, the tax is progressive and would be reaching an estimated 50 to 80 Singapore dollars, or about 36 to 60 US dollars per ton. What's good about that is that the opportunity here is for the carbon taxes or the value that's generated from the global north. Because as you can imagine, carbon taxpayers will be paying taxes. They are allowed actually in Singapore to offset or to purchase a certain percentage, not 100%, because that would be buying yourself to emit, right? That's not a good thing. So companies are incentivized or required actually to actually reduce their direct carbon emissions. But we have to balance the principle with some pragmatism. There is a certain amount of carbon that is very hard, extremely hard or expensive to abate. So a certain percent of those carbon reduction that's hard to abate is allowed to go through the carbon credit market. And that's an opportunity for companies like us who belong to the emerging markets, where we can leverage that carbon financing to enable very compelling carbon reduction projects, such as the early coal retirement and the replacement of the lost generation from coal with clean, reliable, and affordable energy, and doing it in a just manner by making sure that no one gets left behind, that the affected communities or workers are part of a just transition.
So, I mean, there's so much opportunity in the Philippines as well. I think the Philippines is the fourth most attractive place in Southeast Asia when it comes to renewables. So tell us about the future of the energy mix in that part of the world. Is it going to be a blend of everything for a while, and then we'll finally see sort of renewables take charge?
Actually, Philippines, according to a recent survey, is now the fourth most attractive renewable market among all emerging markets, not just in Southeast Asia. It is, in fact, the most attractive in Southeast Asia. But yeah, the part of this is because of the policy framework that we have in the Philippines. The government there has very strong renewable policy. We're also fortunate to have a liberalized market in the Philippines. So we don't solely depend on government policy, particularly procurement policy. There is a real supply-demand free market mechanism there. And of course, in the Philippines, we're blessed with good sun and good wind, so we have quite compelling renewable resources as well in the Philippines. So currently, the share of renewables out of all the energy output in the Philippines is just about 22%. And there is a government target to increase this to 35% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. And we believe that it is an attainable goal. We have the right policies in place, we have the right conditions. Transmission is a challenge, but we believe that we can work together and enable these connectivity or transmission upgrades and so forth. But we think there's a path. Between now and 2030, we estimate that to serve the 5 to 6% annual growth in demand in the Philippines and to get from 22 to 35% renewable share of our output, we would need to build around 20 gigawatts or 20,000 megawatts of renewables in the Philippines between now and 2030. So in our case, ACEN currently has close to 5,000 megawatts of renewables in the Philippines and around the region. Philippines remains our largest market. We have almost 2,000 megawatts of renewables in the Philippines. And our aspiration is to quadruple that to close to 8,000 megawatts of renewables in the Philippines, which would really contribute significantly out of the country's requirements to hit our goal of 35% renewable share of output. We have a very strong presence and a strong pipeline in the Philippines, and we think that it can be done. The company also announced recently our goal to reach 20 gigawatts of renewables by 2030. So we've got an aspiration that we branded as ACEN 2030, which is our aspiration to reach 20 gigawatts by 2030. in the Philippines and around the region, where we have presence in Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos PDR, in India, Australia, and a small presence in the US as well. So we've become a regional company over time, where we started in the Philippines 12 years ago. We've grown to 6 or 7 markets. We've shifted from being thermal focused to renewables focused. So this has been an exciting transformation over the last few years, and we've led the way in terms of transitioning from fossil fuel to renewables by employing some innovative mechanisms to enable the scale-up of renewables and the early retirement of coal plants.
Going back to COP28, what has been the conversation around coal within the energy mix? Has there been sort of any specific announcements that you've been quite excited about?
Well, everyone acknowledges that coal plants account for a significant part of the global emissions, and something must be done. And last year, there was the promise of using energy transition mechanism, or the so-called JETP programs, which is leveraging blended finance to incentivize asset owners, coal asset owners, to affect the early retirement of the coal plants. And there's still some ongoing work. The work is focused on Indonesia, among a few key markets. There's been some announcements that they are getting close to getting the first deal done there. So we're hoping for that to happen, and we're hoping to scale that up. This year, the big announcement on innovative mechanisms to affect to complement blended finance, or the energy transition mechanism, is the push for transition credits. And we're very delighted to be leading the charge and being the pioneers in terms of doing the pilot project together with our collaborators, particularly Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Rockefeller Foundation-led Coal to Clean Credit Initiative, to effect the first pilot project and demonstrate that transition credits, or high-integrity carbon credits, of retiring coal plants early and replacing it with clean, reliable, and affordable energy is doable, that it can be done, that it can be scaled, and it can be a very effective means to accelerate the retirement of coal plants.
A brilliant insight there. Thank you so much for your excellent update on what you're doing at ACEN, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.